If you had a sexual awakening during that scene in Lord of the Rings where Frodo and Sam fight Aragog, that giant spider, or that scene in The Hobbit where they fight a lot of the giant spiders, if you felt tingly during that, I have the book for you. For everyone else, I'm so sorry. Hi, my name is Victoria, and I read bad books so you don't have to. Today we are talking about Ensnared. Yes, that is an alien Spider-Man. Yes, they're gonna do what you think they're gonna do. Let's just rip off the Band-Aid and get right into it. So we open with the point of view of Catan, our male main character. He is the Spider-Man. It's unclear exactly how much of him is spider and how much of him is man, but it is a horrifying amalgamation of the two. He is a Vrix, that is what they call the spider people on this planet. It is an alien planet, and he lives in the city of Takarl. Today is Offering Day, and the entire, first 3 chapters are just info dumping about this world, which is fun. It's sort of fine. I was really not expecting it to be like this hardcore fantasy sci-fi, but it is very clear that the author did a lot of world building work and wants to share that with us. I would be more invested if this was a fantasy or sci-fi novel and not like a romance first, because I'm unsure how much of this politics and world building that I actually have to parse, how much of it is actually going to be relevant and how much of it is just going to be lost in the backdrop of the romance. It seems like there's a bit of tension happening. The queen is a bad queen. It's a matriarchal society, and the women are much bigger and stronger than the men. And the queen has a thing for our protagonist, Catan, and he doesn't have a thing for her, so that's awkward for everybody. There's talk among his friends of maybe being a little bit sassy. He's gonna kind of poke the bear a little bit, and his friends are like, maybe you shouldn't do that because she could just tear your head off. And he's like, I have lost the ability to care. My ability to care died when my parents died. So, orphan, we love a good orphan, don't we? It seems like Catan's dream is to be out there in the tangle, which is what they call the forest, the jungle, and not down in the caves where most of Takarl, the big city, is. So he is just a wandering ranger dreamer who is held back by the obligations of his society. Great. So he's talking with his friends, and during this conversation, their mandibles are extremely expressive. There's opening and closing and juddering and chittering, and I don't like any of it. I don't like thinking about mandibles that much. I would like to not think about mandibles at all. The more that I say it, the more uncomfortable I get. I hate it. Can they just use their hands to emote? I don't want this extra facial appendage. I don't need it. It is also just straight up my bad for picking up this book. I think spiders are cool theoretically, but if there is one larger than that in my house, I consider just burning down the entire apartment building and starting over. So honestly, this isn't on the author. This is really on me. I did myself dirty with this one. So after a bit of conversation with his friends, he makes his way into the den of the brood mother, the queen, and we get this little excerpt. Zervashi's amber eyes glinted as boldly as her metal adornments as she swung her gaze to Catan. He had faced down bloodthirsty beasts that hadn't looked half as predatory as the queen. Her mandibles opened wide and rose, and her mouth parted enough for her tongue to slip out and trace one of the pointed tips on her upper jaw. Something about the combination of a tongue and mandibles, big ick. So it's Offering Day, and it's Catan's turn to make an offering. He offers her this bundle of roots and plant-based dyes, which is apparently what he gave her 7 years ago. I guess Offering Day happens every 7 years, even though all of the other world building insists that they're obsessed with the number 8, which sort of makes sense. Spiders, you get it. And so he gets down, he presents this offering, and then he stabs himself in the palm and bleeds all over it, which seems to piss everybody off. It is very unclear what is happening. I will say, for the rest of the book, we do not ever find out what is actually happening here. It just never makes sense. It seems like he does it explicitly to make the queen mad, which seems like a bad deal because she's pretty bloodthirsty. Catan's stem stirred behind his slit. He clenched his jaw against the sensation, refusing to give her such a reaction. I think that means he got hard. I don't entirely know what's happening here, and I don't really want to know. Part of me is tempted to look up what spider genitals are like, but also I don't actually want to know. So I'm just going to assume this is incredibly biologically accurate. So all the queen does basically is wrestle him to the ground and is like, I'm stronger than you. I'm the queen. I get what I want. And then she lets him go. There's no actual consequences, even though also in this scene we see another female challenge her and the queen literally tears her head off. So we know that this queen is capable of a lot, and it just really seems like she's letting him off incredibly easy. Catan runs off into the woods after this, presumably to go hunt. He loves the woods. He is one with nature. He can commune with it. It is as natural to him as the back of his hand. Catan definitely is insufferable when he gets high at parties, just talking about how he's so enlightened and special for going on hikes. Look, this guy has not done anything to me. A part of me is just over this book already. It takes itself deadly serious, which is interesting for a book with this cover. It's just, there is so much world building and so much politics, and I just so do not care. If I knew there was going to be an all-out civil war and there were a bunch of interesting characters, then I would be more invested. But there might be, but it's not happening now. And the main thing is supposed to be the romance, and Catan has all of the personality of Kocoum from Pocahontas. The only thing we know about him is that he likes the forest and he's a bit of a shit disturber for no reason. Neither of these are great qualities. I mean, sure, liking the forest is fine. Look, I don't go outside. I'm sure forests are great, but definitely being a little shit disturber, not the best. Not what I'm looking for in a partner anyway. I just wish this book would have a little more fun, and I wish it would loosen up around some of the world building so that we could have a plot that I care about. I just wish it was interesting, actually. I think it just boils down to the fact that this is boring, and I picked up a book about spider sex, and how am I bored reading this book? I don't understand. Anyway, we're a decent chunk into this book and we still haven't met our love interest yet, too. I don't have high hopes for her having a personality either. So Catan is in the woods and he spends 2 chapters hunting this beast thing. It seems to be some sort of tiger-like situation. During this hunt, he falls through a hole in the earth and tumbles into this spaceship bunker thing. It is very unclear what it actually is. It's all from Catan's point of view, so it's all cocoons and the red light of the sun and all of this stuff. And I like it when authors describe something from an alien point of view and you read it back and you're like, oh, that's a watch. Oh, that's a TV. Oh, that's this thing. And that's fun. I like that. But I genuinely, it took me so long to figure out that the red light of dawn was an emergency light. It was difficult to parse because all of it was an alien thing. And I just wish it had been from the perspective of the female character who knows what all this stuff is. So we could just see that, yes, this is a spaceship and there's a bunch of people in cryostasis and one of them seems to be still alive. And it seems like he trips a button and activates something while he's in there. From everywhere and nowhere came a soft, smooth voice, unlike that of any Vrix, speaking garbled, meaningless words. Colonist Davy Foster, number 210, normal vitals. Confirm emergency awakening sequence. Catan pushed himself away from the cocoon, inadvertently pressing the square of light on its front again. An unfamiliar tone sounded, as gentle as the one he'd heard at the door, but twice as startling. Raising his forelegs, he searched for the source of that voice, for the new, sudden threat. Emergency awakening initiated. The voice continued. By the 8, what was the spirit saying? Had Catan provoked its wrath? He was reminded again of his empty hands, of his barbed spear caught in the plant web, and he growled. Oh my god, please stop spelling it out phonetically, please. We get that he doesn't understand what it is. Please stop spelling it out phonetically. It just makes it that much more difficult to read. Like, I get what you're saying, but it just takes me like 2 extra seconds, and I hate it. It's really annoying. Also, another pet peeve, he keeps forcing his mandibles down, and I don't know what that means, because I thought mandibles were like this, but I guess on spiders they might be like this, and I don't know if it's like he's just forcing them, like, is he dipping his head? I don't know. Are they like always up? Like, I don't understand what that's like emotionally supposed to mean. So Catan has unlocked Ivy Foster's cryostasis pod. He takes her out. She's like pretty out of it. And he takes her back somewhere safe. I thought now we would finally get her perspective, but no, it's still Spider-Man's perspective. He can tell that she's female. He can like smell it on her, and he's like examining her body using the phrase her chest mounds, which I always hate. We've been over this. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know how much I hate that. Ivy wakes up at some point, sees Spider Alien Man, freaks out, understandably, and then we have some of the most excruciating dialogue I have ever had to read. 8's mouth opened. He calls her 8. Those plump pieces of flesh parting, and her pink tongue slipped out to trail across them. Catan's arm tensed, ready to silence her again, but she simply drew that little tongue back into her mouth and pressed those plump bits together. She dipped and lifted her chin twice in quick succession. Please be a dream. Please be a dream. Please. The entire conversation that he has with her is spelled out like that. The entire conversation. It doesn't end. Like, this problem could have been solved by having the conversation from Ivy's perspective, because he barely talks. Because he doesn't understand what she's saying. He is doing mostly gestures. She's doing a lot of talking. So the fact that we have it from his perspective, where we have to, like, read through this terrible sounding out of all the words, is, like, it could have been avoided. I don't think the author realizes how annoying this is. It's bad. Also, the way he describes her lips, I guess, is accurate, but, like, we know what lips are, and I don't need him to describe them in detail. I get that he's fascinated with it, but, like, the way that she's describing it is just... Why is everything so pink and fleshy and wet? I think everything about this book just annoys me. I think I'm being unreasonable, but I can't help it. So Catan takes her back to his nest in a tree. He has like this treehouse thing that's made out of a web. It's pretty high up, so Ivy can't get up and down by herself. He has to carry her, and she's obviously terrified and thinks that he's gonna eat her. They manage to like sort out that situation and figure out that he's not gonna eat her. They're having like these little moments of learning each other's language, which would be like a cute bonding experience, except that even if they weren't both sexually attractive in their own ways, like if there wasn't an attraction between them, they would still have to do this. Like, this is a survival thing. This isn't like a cute bonding, I want to talk to you because you're hot thing. It's more of a, I need this to live situation. Finally, at some point, we get Ivy's point of view. She confirms that she is from Earth, she was a space colonist, and her spaceship seems to have crashed. We also finally get like a full rundown of what Catan looks like, which is We're 20% into the book. I would have liked that a little earlier, but okay. 6.5, maybe 7 feet tall. Its body was a blend of hard angles and lean muscles. The torso was humanoid with a broad chest leading down to a narrow waist, but its backside, it was like the rear end of a spider. Its mouth was a slash, cutting across its face, broken only by a pair of fang-like protrusions on either side. But those were nothing compared to the powerful mandibles jutting from between where the cheekbones and temples would have been on a human. Strands of long black hair with white streaks flowed from behind the head crest and hung over the creature's shoulders. That's not really my type, but you do you. At some point, they fall asleep, and then the next morning, Ivy is like, I'm hungry. She communicates that to Catan, and he goes out to try to hunt something for her. With Ivy occupying his every thought since he'd found her, Catan had all but forgotten that his nighttime hunt had yielded no meat, at least not the sort for eating. His choice to relocate to the Tangle, to live apart from his people, had been made with full understanding of the expectations it would place upon him. A hunter must provide. The author is trying to spin this as like, it's so romantic that he can't stop thinking about her. Oh my goodness. But like, if I discovered an alien in my backyard and took it home to live with me, I would still be thinking about it 10 hours later. That would be consuming my every thought. That's not romantic. That's just, holy shit, I found an alien. There's no actual romance yet, other than the fact that like he knows that she's female and like has urges, I guess. While he's out, Catan hears from another hunter who's also a friend, and he says that the queen is like being really bloodthirsty, and also she's keeping a really close tab on all of the meat that people are bringing back. This is sort of relevant later. When he comes back, Ivy is at the door of the den thing with a knife to his neck. She is like, oh my god, I didn't know it was you. I didn't know who was coming. I was so scared. Which he obviously can't understand. And like, sure, girl, get a weapon. But like, you had to maybe assume that it could have been him coming back, and you could have super fucked up. Instead of this making him mad, it makes him really horny. And he starts like licking her neck, which is maybe one of the most horrifying mental images that's my worst nightmare, I think. And I mean, there is just nothing sexier than seeing a man rub up on a woman who is just terrified out of her mind. Am I right? He decides not to mate with her because she's basically an animal. It's like he's having a cute pet, and like you wouldn't do that with an animal. It has nothing to do with her consent. His decision has nothing to do with her consent. It's just, oh, bestiality is bad. I shouldn't do that. So eventually he stops himself. Catan tries to feed her bugs. Ivy is like, ew, I don't want those. They go through a whole thing of figuring out that she can eat vegetables. Catan spends a weird amount of time. He like opens her mouth and like examines her teeth so he can figure out what she eats. And like, I don't know that we needed 2 full pages of just him describing her mouth and teeth to us, because I'm actually quite familiar with what a human mouth looks like. So I didn't really need him to recap that for me. This book is moving so slowly. This author just seems to want to describe everything that is happening from his point of view. And there's really no sense of like she's editing this down to be only the good parts. She's just it's straight up his diary. No filter. Nothing. And like, I will say that like the quality of the writing is better than in other books. Like there's no typos. She clearly like spent time like refining the prose, but the pacing is terrible. I just want something to happen. Like nothing is, we found Ivy. That's good. And we're like starting to like get to know her a little bit, but like there's a reason that like in Tarzan, with Tarzan and Jane, the like getting him up to speed was a montage scene and not like the entire movie. You know what I mean? So Ivy gets to eat. It's great. Eventually they go to sleep. Ivy has this dream about the tornado that took out her family home. And it's one of the reasons why she left on this space mission. She wakes up in a panic and then realizes she has to pee. She can't communicate that to Catan in time because remember, it's his treehouse is so high, she can't get up and down by herself. And she just pees her pants, which is a weird thing to include. The next scene, he like takes her down and like dunks her in the lake, and she has this wet t-shirt moment. And now it all makes sense why it was included, right? This is completely warranted. We get it now. He is like fascinated with her body and like starts rubbing up on her and touching her inappropriately. There's some heavy petting, even though she's telling him to stop and he doesn't stop. But she secretly likes it, so it's fine, right? Call me crazy, but I don't think we should be glamorizing men who act like this. This is a trope that I've seen way too often in these books, and I really hate it. Anyway, it doesn't get further than heavy petting, and they like go back to the den. They still keep talking like this, though. It will not end. They will keep talking like this for the entire book. I cannot express how annoying it is. The next night, there's a storm, and Ivy is scared because we know that she's scared of storms and tornadoes. Catan kind of like cuddles her, and we finally have found a reason to root for them as a couple. They're finally doing something cute. He's finally doing something that's considerate, not just because it's a survival tactic. They start like kind of rubbing up against each other and like getting really close. His claspers squeezed her closer still until her skin was flush with his, and she felt the slit between those limbs against her, and the hard thing pressing against it from underneath. The hard thing that seemed to long for freedom. If you are also a hard thing longing for freedom, like and subscribe. It's getting harder and harder to work that in there. It has now been a week. Catan's English has improved almost to fluency at this point, which is impressive, I guess. He's teaching her to fish and like teaching her basic survival skills, and they seem to be having a good time together. 3 weeks after that, Catan goes into town, and we are introduced to just so many new characters, even though it's 50% into the book. I don't know what happened to the other characters that we were already introduced to. They don't seem to be reoccurring. Whatever. One of the Queen's Royal Guard seems to be enemies with Catan, and he like threatens him, and they have a dick measuring contest. Catan also talks to a different group of friends about kind of starting a revolution. So this is more of a firm plan, but it's also with completely different friends than the first time that we talked to friends about Catan being a shit disturber. I don't know why we were introduced to those first group of friends if it's not gonna be relevant now. So Catan has to go in and make his offering again to the Queen and show what he's been doing out in the tangle. The Queen threatens to R-word him, and Catan says that he would rather die, and the Queen has him in a submission hold and is mad at him and then lets him go. I would like this kind of stuff better, because they're trying to set this Queen up as like incredibly bloodthirsty, incredibly powerful, like a big threat to Catan and Ivy, right? Like it's gonna get to this thing where, not in this book, it's gonna eventually, I assume, get to a thing where the Queen is gonna try to kill Ivy. If you're trying to set up a character as powerful, you can't just have the other character being like, no, I don't want to obey your laws, and the Queen being like, fine, I'll get you later, and like have there be no repercussions. That's not how that works. It would be also a better thing for Catan to show how resourceful he is and how he keeps getting out of these situations. But instead he's just like, nah, no thank you. And it just doesn't really make sense with the Queen's character to just then let him go. All of these politics, like there's so much going on, and I don't care about any of it because it seems so obvious that the plot is just going there. We don't need all of the details. Like, this could happen in any world. All of the, like, additional stuff is just fluff. And it's really so tempting when you are world building to flesh out every single detail. And there's nothing wrong with having every single detail. There is something wrong with sharing every single detail when we as the reader don't need it. I don't care about your world. Just tell me a good story, you know? I'm so frustrated with the pace of this book and how nothing is happening and how none of the characters have any personality. And why do people keep reading? This book has a high rating on Goodreads. I don't understand. I just feel like we all deserve better than this. So Catan comes back from his little expedition and tells Ivy about the queen and how the queen wants to mate, but he doesn't want to mate with her. Ivy suddenly remembers that there were other people on the spaceship with her. It's been 2 months. This is the first time that this thought has occurred to her, that there are other people that she could save. It's been 2 months. Catan says he doesn't want to take her back because it's too dangerous. Ivy is like, we still have to. People could be dying. They have a little fight about it. Ivy stalks off, almost gets mauled by a tiger. Catan defeats the tiger. They make up. Catan starts making Ivy this beautiful silk dress because he's also a weaver, not just a hunter. It's a fun little spider thing. I like this kind of world building. Like, this makes sense and it's relevant to the plot. It's not all trash. I can like things. See, I can be positive. It's hard, but I can. The queen comes up to his den, which is kind of a big deal, and she reminds him about the high claiming, which, like, we can all guess what that is. After this, that's when Catan and Ivy finally bone. I will spare you most of the details of this. There's a little bit of bondage, so it's a little spicy. But I will say for the record that the verb spearing is often not one that I want associated with my lady bits. No, thank you. Also, as she moved, something seeped from her. Seeping is bad. No, thank you. Any other, we need to work on our verbs. So after this mating ritual, they seem to be kind of married. I'm trying not to think about the implication of half human, half spider babies. Don't want to go there. Also, after this, Ivy teaches him how to kiss. Catan rubbed his mouth across her lips, scraping them gently, creating the soft rasp of hide against skin. When Ivy's tongue flicked once more across the seam of his mouth, he opened to her. I don't think I've ever read a kissing scene that was as unappetizing as that. Scraping, again, is not a verb that I want used in this context. I never thought about how it would be to kiss something with no lips. It seems difficult and unpleasant. So they spend a week just boning, and then after that, Catan decides to take Ivy back to her spaceship. It seems to me like the reason that he decides now is that their fates are intertwined and they're fully mated now, so he has to take her back. But it seems to me that if his main concern was safety, he should be like doubling down on not taking her back now because their fates are intertwined. Nothing has changed about the situation to make him believe that he would be more capable of defeating whatever he thinks is down there, or make him believe that it is more safe. So I don't know why he would change his mind. But he changes his mind. They go down there. There are actually, it seems like 12 comatose colonizers, I guess is the word, that are still alive, that they could save. Ivy tries to convince him to save them. Katana's like, you're so sweet, but no. And they get interrupted by the guardsman that Catan was enemies with. The guardsman is charged with bringing Catan back to town, sees Ivy, and then Catan kills him so that he won't report back about Ivy. And that's book 1 of 3. Did I mention this is a trilogy? Yeah, it's book 1 of 3. I will not be reading the other 2. I think I've had enough. I feel like this book should have been fun, and I feel robbed of my fun in this. I also am not sure how they can fill 2 more books with a plot that is clearly going in a very specific direction. There's just not that much else there. They could have put it all in 1 book if we had not had so many chapters of just nothing happening. I'm just bitter about this. I'm gonna go read like a Chuck Tingle to like cleanse my brain of both the terrible sex scenes and just the lack of fun, because I feel like I need it now. Nevertheless, it is over. We made it through. Congratulations. I'm proud of me. I hope you're proud of you if you made it all the way to the end of this video. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you are interested in coming along with me on further bad book journeys, please like and subscribe. We'll be doing lots of weird monster stuff this month. Yeah, I need to go cleanse my palate, so I will see you next time. Bye.